Welcome to Hope Unlimited meeting number 60. There's a lot of new faces here. I'm assuming the majority of you didn't come just to hear me speak tonight. I know we have a great group. We have two special guests. I wanted to take a minute and say how important this meeting is. This is 3 years today. 3 years here.
There's a lot to talk about tonight, and I realize in San Diego in particular is so different from a lot of other parts of the state. We've got some very peculiar problems specifically with implementation of medical marijuana here that I know everybody's highly interested in, and which I want to hear from you folks about that. I think you're more knowledgeable to a large extent about the San Diego situation than myself. But I'll start off. I have two things that I'm going to talk about. Things that are happening, first of all, on the state and national level, which are tremendously encouraging. And secondly, I'm going to do a sales pitch for my book, Marijuana Medical Handbook, available here with author's autograph for $20, the most comprehensive patient's guide to medical marijuana. Those are the rather disparate subjects, but as to this present moment, I guess everybody here knows, everybody is fully aware of what Governor Schwarzenegger said the other day, the governor of the largest state, the Republican governor of the largest state, saying it's time to talk about marijuana legalization. Yes. And this didn't come out of a vacuum. Came out of some other things, some other news that's been out recently. Like, for example, the first field poll, Mervyn Field, California poll, to show that a majority of Californians support legalizing marijuana.
The Golden State about to become the pot state. Recent comments by Governor Schwarzenegger suggest the state could be considering legalizing and taxing marijuana. Today, Jeff Powers asked the governor about it.
California voters passed Prop 215 in 1996, legalizing medicinal marijuana in the state. But now, Governor Schwarzenegger is taking the argument a step further and considering legalizing and taxing marijuana to get the state out of its budget crisis, saying, quote, "I think it's time for a debate. I think all of those ideas of creating extra revenues, I'm always open for a debate on it." I asked the governor about the issue at a news conference.
How serious you are about the possibility of legalizing marijuana in California?
I think that this is a discussion that we can have sometimes after May 19th.
May 19th is the special election aimed at fixing the state's budget woes. County Supervisor Diane, who has opposed Proposition 215, was more direct.
Marijuana, in my opinion and the opinion of others, is a gateway drug. I think it's wrong to legalize marijuana.
A recent poll showed 56% of Californians would support an initiative to legalize marijuana.
The tide is turning. Public opinion is against her.
Klein runs Hope Unlimited. The medical marijuana group that's dedicated to protecting Prop 215 supports the legalization and taxation of marijuana in California.
I will be here fighting with the group and for the group, and we're not going anywhere, and we look forward to a vigorous debate.
Jeff Powers, San Diego 6 News.
Part of the whole problem, the prohibition problem, legalization. And I especially have to thank Assemblyman Tom Amrano from San Francisco for introducing a bill, the first bill to my knowledge in the United States, to try to legalize marijuana just like alcohol and tobacco. A landmark piece of legislation with which I'll have to admit that I had something to do. Because this piece of legislation, the bill itself, was sitting in my files for the last 5 years. It was a bill that was originally written up for Senator John Vasconcellos, who sponsored Proposition 215. And back in 2004, last year he was in the legislature, John was thinking of introducing this legalization bill. And so he got a law student tried to write it up, and he sent it into the California Legislative Council for the legislature, and they worked it all out. It's a pretty extensive piece of work. It's not an easy thing to do something as comprehensive as write a marijuana legalization and regulation bill. Because first of all, you have to change all of the provisions of California law that currently have to do with prohibiting marijuana, and they're extensive provisions. Then you have to start writing the code to regulate it like alcohol. And if anybody's seen the alcohol code, alcoholic beverage code in California, that's even more voluminous. So the bill was like 50 pages long, but it was really quite well done, if I do say so, despite a few flaws and such not that are going to be addressed still. But the bill was never introduced to the legislature. And, you know, as a result, when John left, I said, well, look, you've got this bill here. This is the only such bill I know. Give it to me at least, and maybe it'll come in useful someday. And I thought it was a long shot. I never thought I would hear anything more about it. Put it away in my file. And, you know, we went through, you know, the Bush administration, the rest of the Bush administration, and nobody talked about marijuana at all. We went through a whole election campaign in which the marijuana issue and the drug issue and the prison issue were never even raised. In this whole campaign we had between Mr. McCain and Senator Obama. And frankly, even after the election, I was despairing about whether this issue would ever come up. And then you might recall there were some internet polls on change.org and other places where, you know, America was invited to ask what did they think were the biggest issues facing the nation, you know, health care, or, you know, the economy, or, and it turned out the number one issue was legalizing marijuana, and they used the L word. That was, that question filtered up to the top of amongst hundreds of thousands of responses. Not just once, there were actually 3 separate internet polls in which marijuana legalization came at the top on every one. And that caught our attention. Believe me, we didn't orchestrate it. NORML didn't do it, MPP didn't do it, Drug Policy Alliance didn't do it. This was America speaking all of a sudden. Like a wave of hope or something had come in. And about the same time, after the election, Tom Amiano, I heard that Tom Amiano was interested in something new and cutting edge on marijuana and just go beyond medical marijuana. I said, well, you know, I have this thing in my files, take a look at it. And lo and behold, you know, the state had a budget crisis. And the way this bill was set up, it had an excise tax on marijuana that, together with savings from law enforcement, would raise over $1 million for the state. And this is not trivial amounts of money. And Tom thought this was a great issue. Not only did he think it was a great issue, but he also got the chairwoman of the State Board of Equalization who oversees sales taxes, Betty E., to agree with him on this. And we've testified to Betty E. before about the taxes that we're collecting just off medical marijuana, which are in the tens of millions of dollars in California. So, lo and behold, Tom decided to introduce the bill, and it created a nationwide discussion that has since cascaded. You know, we did a field poll, we have Governor Schwarzenegger, and we even have the first congressperson to come out and say they support legalization. And it's, amazingly enough, a congresswoman from Southern California, Loretta Sanchez, who suggested that the federal government should have a pilot program of marijuana legalization in California, noting why? Because she was chairwoman of the Homeland, one of the Homeland Security committees that was investigating the whole Mexican drug war situation. And she noted, well, you know, this violence down here is very much like the same thing we had with alcohol prohibition. And, you know, a lot of people in California, she was saying this, seem to think that marijuana ought to be legal, and why shouldn't we try a pilot program